Hello and welcome to the first ever Lifewarrior Podcast. Finally, the day is here. This is something I and we have been talking about for months now, and it's finally here. I'm super excited and proud to bring this movement to the world. Originally, when I started Lifewarrior, I kept calling it a brand. And if you've never followed me on my social media, my TikToks, my Instagrams, or anything like that, that's how it started, right? I talked about a brand, my Lifewarrior brand. But as time has gone by and I've done more and more of my social media stuff, especially my TikTok lives, I realized that it's not a brand. Lifewarrior is a movement. And it's a movement for everybody. It's exactly what I intended it to be in the first place. So I'm going to have some great guests on here coming up. Aubrey McDade Jr., one of the most decorated Marines, Navy Cross recipient, good friend of mine, just one of the most motivating people you'll ever meet, and a great Lifewarrior story. Today I also filmed an episode with my wife, Anna, and my daughter, Elliston, about a Lifewarrior story it's big, and you'll see. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be really interesting. If you are interested in AI crimes and things of that nature, it's something we have lived through over the last, 8-9 months. And so you're going to want to watch that. You parents and you kids, you're going to want to watch that episode and pass it along. Some really good motivational stuff coming from that podcast. So I'm super excited to present that. But I was going to make Aubrey McDade my first ever podcast, but I feel like I needed to do this episode before that one ever happened. And there's a reason. I realized that there's a lot of people when I do my lives on TikTok and things like that that ask me, what is this? What is Lifewarrior? What does Lifewarrior mean? What is being a Lifewarrior? And so I feel like that's where I needed to start, to give you the background of how I started it and where it came from and what it means. Because there is, in my own definition of this movement. So it all kind of came to me. This is a movement that has been building for a long, long time in me. I just didn't know it. So it started back in like 2018. I was going through some really, really rough times. A lot of mental issues. I was a firefighter for 22 years. And so I was going through some things then. And then in 2019, it all just kind of came to a head, right? I realized that some of the calls that I made as a medic in the fire department stuck with me more than I thought they would. And dreams and nightmares and things like that, sleepless nights, many of them, months and months of sleepless nights, dragged on. And during that whole time, coming 2020, I was off injured from the fire department, and I was in a major wreck while I was off injured from the fire department. My mom passed away. During that time period, I was going through a really hard divorce during that time and trying to manage that, financial issues because of that. There were just a lot of things that were hitting me all at the same time. And during that time, there were times that I realized that, there were thoughts that I never thought I'd have, that I didn't want to be here anymore, that I don't want to do this anymore, and I couldn't do this anymore. But also at the same time, I tell people that the fire department damaged me, but it also saved me. Because I remember making those calls on adult men that would leave suicide notes and things like that behind, things like, oh, my kids, you're going to be better off without me, and those kind of things. And it always made me angry. Like, that's a coward move. You're going to put that on your kids. And so during those times, that's what hit me. It was like, no, I'm not doing that. I won't go out like that. There's got to be something more. I've never been a quitter. I've never been somebody who's just laid down and just completely given up. So I took that, and that drive and that determination that I've always had, and carried it into this. And so over the years, pretty much my entire life, I've always had people coming to me and tell me their stories. Homeless people, people on the street. It didn't matter where I was. People would come and tell me, and when they would talk to me, they would tell me their entire life story. For some reason, I've always been that person that people always thought they could come to. And for a long time, I would listen to their stories and try and motivate them in some way, shape, or form. And I always would tell them, man, that's life warrior shit you're doing. And after several years of doing that, of talking and telling that to people over and over again, it's like God hit me in the head and was like, hey, bud, are you listening to yourself? Do you hear what you're saying? That's it. That's what you've been looking for a long time. That is the movement. Life warrior. You're doing life warrior shit. And so that's how it began. That's how it started. And I finally woke up and realized that was it. Now, what is a life warrior? People ask me that question all the time. I remember looking up the definition of warrior and what it means. And it's, anybody trained in combat, war, fighting wars. But if you really look, there's a part of that definition that people don't see very often. And it is anyone engaged in any kind of conflict or struggle, right? And so it hit me. That's it. That's doing life, right? Every day, there is not a person on this planet that doesn't, in their lifetime, experience a conflict or struggle that alters the way they live life, see life, do life, treat people, act. I mean, there's nobody on the planet that goes through life without that. But even with that conflict and struggle, and it could be anything: depression, PTSD, alcoholism, drug addiction, death of a family member, an illness. It can be anything, any kind of conflict or struggle that when you wake up every morning, man, that you really sometimes don't want to wake up, that you don't want to open your eyes, you don't want to put your feet on the floor, and you don't want to move. And those are the life warrior struggles, right? And so that's it. That is doing life. But that's also being a warrior, not fighting war, right? Because my brother, thankfully survived it. He did 31 years in the Army, numerous tours in Iraq, suffered from that. I've got friends of mine who suffered from those times in the military fighting wars, right? And then they had to come home. And I've had these conversations with a lot of my military friends that war was easier. It was simpler, right? It was more cut and dry. The rules were more simple. But when you come home and you have to adjust, right? You have to adjust to doing life. Now you're just a regular guy and you have to do life. You have to wake up every morning and go work and pay your bills and take care of your kids and go to the doctor and go to the bank and go to the grocery store and do all those things that are so monotonous to people who are struggling. But you don't have a choice. That's doing life, and it's being a warrior, conflict and struggle. So that's it. That is how the name Life Warrior came about. You're doing life warrior shit when you do that. And so it was a way for me to bring about a change and help, not just my brothers in the fire department, police department, military, all of that, but a way to help anybody and everybody that wanted it and needed it. That is the goal of Life Warrior, right? Life Warrior, being a Life Warrior is it's the common bond that we have, everybody on this planet has. And if you watch any of my social media stuff, you'll see it doesn't matter if it's Ireland or Scotland or New Zealand or Australia or Poland or Argentina or Venezuela, Chile. It doesn't matter. They are going through or have to deal with the same things that we have to deal with here. So people always feel like they're alone. You're not in this together with anyone. And so my goal is to make people understand, to help people understand that no matter what conflict or struggle you're going through, because even in my time, right, I thought at the time, this is the worst. This is the absolute worst. I was in a real bad, dark place where I didn't want to be here anymore. The place where I never thought I'd get to. And I thought that was the worst. And it was through the Life Warrior movement that I realized that my story ain't that bad. It's not that bad. There are people that have done things, unbelievable things, and dealt with them and are still here fighting every day. And so here is the thing, right? Here's what I'm trying to get, the movement, the message I'm trying to get across. It is not the story of the conflict or the struggle that matters. That story or conflict is just what made you who you are today. It's changed or altered your life in some way, shape, or form, right? It's who you are now. The important part is, what is it that during those worst times in your life that made you open your eyes, made you put your feet on the floor when you woke up, brush your teeth, make your bed, go make food, go to work, do all those things daily? What is it that pushed you forward during those worst times? Because there are people out there that are going through very similar situations to what you're going through or have been through, and they don't know how to get out of it. They don't know how to move forward. They're trying to figure it out. Maybe it's the message that you give them. Maybe it's the why that you give them that changes everything for them, helps them see the light and the path to get out of it. That is why I started Life Warrior. That's it. So that is what is going to, moving forward, that's what this is going to be. This is going to be people from all walks of life, everywhere you can think of. People living in RVs, doing life, some of the things they've experienced. I mean, I had a lady, Deb, on my live the other night that she's going to be on one of my podcasts. Unreal how she's even here. She's a 55-year-old lady. Unreal how she's still here and has the attitude that she has after what she dealt with. There's been so many. So I encourage you also to come to my TikTok lives, because that's a place where you can also go and tell your story. You can come and tell your story. I highly encourage it to come and tell your story on there, because it's crazy how there's always somebody else on there who's been going through the same thing. And every other life warrior in that page will support you. Here's the thing. Nowadays, you walk by people in the street, thousands of people every day, and you got no idea what they're dealing with, the trauma, the conflict, the struggle that they dealt with in their lifetime, what is hard, what's hard for them right at the moment. You may see them sometimes and they're at their worst, and you think, man, they're being rotten to somebody, and you think, man, what an asshole that guy or girl is. But you don't know why. Maybe they're just going through a divorce and lost everything. Maybe their kid just passed away. Maybe they just got told they got terminal cancer. Maybe they're military female, male, and are still living with the nightmares of the things they had to see and do in war. You don't know, because the way of the world now is don't ask, don't talk, just keep your eyes forward. Don't worry about everybody else's problems. Hooray for me and F you. That was an old adage that one of the men that molded me into the person I am. Bill Gilbreth was my coach at Abilene Christian University when I played baseball there. He played for the Tigers. He was just a really good man. And that was what he called the big league attitude. That's what would get you, right? Hooray for me and F you. And so I'll never forget it, those words that he said, and it rings true today. That is who we are in this country, in the world. Pay attention to you and only you. And so that place is Life Warrior TikTok Lives, and here is a place where you can come and tell your stories and have people hear you and understand you. And in doing so, this is why I do it for me too, because it helps me. It's selfish, maybe a little. It helps me to get the message out there and to help people. I've had people come on and tell me that they decided they were going to take their own life, and now, because of the message that I put out and hearing the word, that they're here to stay. Man, I always said I was in the fire department for 22 years, and nobody ever calls you on their best day in the fire department. That's not why they call you, right? So I always dealt with people on their worst day. Doing this, it's going to allow me to help people have their best days. You can go on my website, lifewarriortexas.com. It's new. We're getting merchandise on there. You can go to my social media stuff, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all of that, and check it out. These podcasts will be on there. We're going to get them on other platforms. We're going to have some great guests, but that website is going to be somewhere you can go and register and sign up, information, emails. If you don't know, I do been in fitness for a long, long time. I've done nutrition coaching for a long, long time. If you are somebody that needs help that way, sometimes you need a change in your life that way, nutrition and fitness to drive you forward. I'll tell you that lifting weights, working out, nutrition and stuff, it saved me. It's a place where I can go and cut it all loose for a day, for just a couple of hours. And so you can go on the website and register. And if you want that kind of help, reach out. I've helped a lot of people doing that too. So there's going to be really cool, great things coming from this Life Warrior movement that I'm starting. I look forward to having all the really cool guests on. I'm telling y'all not going to want to miss that. It's going to be awesome. Please share this. Go to my social media pages and share it, like it. Let's get this movement and brand out there. This is going to be a way to connect us all. If you noticed in the recent months, the government, media has done a really good job at making us think that we should hate each other, that we should not like each other, that their differences are just too great. And so my goal is to change that perception, to understand, to help us understand that we all have a common bond, and that is conflict and struggle. And some of that conflict and struggle has been caused by media, government, all of that. And so really, we're not the enemy of each other. We are our own best friends. We the people, right? So that's the goal of this Life Warrior movement. And I look forward to getting the word out there. We'll have our merchandise on there soon. I encourage you to buy it. Originally, when I started this movement, merchandise wasn't a thing. I never really considered having Life Warrior merchandise, but somebody explained to me once that made sense. That, again, you walk by people in the street every day and you have no idea what they're going through. Maybe this merchandise is a way you see somebody walking down the street that has a Life Warrior hat on and you're wearing a Life Warrior t-shirt or something like that. It immediately gives you a connection to that person where you understand they've been through some shit and vice versa. They understand, right? And it's a connection. Now you know. It's like, all right, yep, I got you. We're the same. That's the goal of this movement, y'all. So that's it. Life Warrior. It is a way, it is a movement that connects everybody. This podcast is a podcast for everybody. My social media is a place for everybody, not just a certain group. Again, love all my firefighter brothers. I'm proud to be part of that brotherhood. You saw tonight at the Republican Convention, the firefighter that gave his life protecting his family. I'm super fucking proud to be part of that brotherhood and with things like that. Police, I got good friends of mine that are police officers and former military. So I have much love for all of them. But this is a movement for everybody, not just them. And so I want you to be motivated by their stories and by their Life Warrior attitude. But it's not a place for just them. It's a place for everybody. So welcome to the Life Warrior family. I can't wait to blow this thing up. This podcast is going to be just smoking. Got some really cool guests coming on and looking forward to it. And we'll see what happens, y'all. Thanks for joining. Please pass this on and let's get this movement growing. Y'all have a good day tomorrow. Like I always say, tomorrow, wake up and go do Life Warrior shit. Peace.